Join us as career changers, company leaders, industry experts, and others who have been in your shoes share their stories, insights, and lessons learned to help you find enjoyment through employment in the tech world. I'm Nemo Ashong, and this is the Empjoyment Podcast. Employees, how are you doing today? Today is a great day, if I do say so myself. Why? Because we have none other than Mila Singh coming to join us today on the Empjoyment Podcast. Mila is a culture strategist at Culture IQ, and given my own background with culture, I was already just very interested in this conversation. But I think what is even better than that is that Mila came to the conversation ready to deliver for each of you employees. Today's conversation, she's going to go through and help you know that you can steer your career in the life and direction that you want at any time, and how asking questions and constantly being curious is going to give you the keys to success. She works at a small startup, and in that startup, she's wearing multiple hats. And the cool thing about that is that we get to explore, what does that A actually mean? And B, how do you leverage that experience to make the most out of it? I'm not even going to say how do you work your way around it, or how do you manage to keep things up there. If you're going for a small startup, that's just part of generally it's par for the course. So the question isn't how do you deal with it, but how do you make the most of it? And Mila is just so generous with her ways of approaching this type of lifestyle. I'll also say, Mila, and this goes out to a thank you because I know that you're listening to this episode. Thank you for being so real with your failure, your roadblock and your challenge, because it is so raw. And I think it hits on something that employees out there, I know myself, I felt it, and I'm sure that others will feel too, in terms of the fear of what happens when you mess up in your first few weeks on the job. Mila puts it all out there for you, and I'm just so excited for you to just jump into this conversation. And talking about conversations, we're going to make sure that this doesn't end here. You'll know this about me, and you'll know this about Empjoyment. Like, awareness is great, but action is what's going to get you results. Building those skills, getting that experience, that's what's going to get you into the job of your dreams and the job that you want. So we're going to be inviting you to come and take action with us inside of the Empjoyment community, which you can easily come and be a part of by just going to empjoyment.com/community or type in the word Empjoyment to 33444. If that's too hard, you can also just type in the word community to 33444. Just do it and come be a part of this here. We're going to have Mila is going to be in there to talk more about her episode and answer any questions you have, as well as past guests that we have on there. And we're getting ready to figure out what we want to do with our first workshop. So come on in there, help us know where we should drive this amazing community and start meeting other people like you from across the world who are just trying to make it work and be the best versions of themselves while experiencing joy through employment. So with that, let's go ahead and invite Mila Singh onto the podcast. Let's do this. Hello there, employees. Nemo Ashong here, and welcome to the Empjoyment Podcast, where we're focused on helping people just like you find enjoyment through employment. Employees, we are quite fortunate today because Mila Singh is sitting with us and sharing her story with all of us. Mila, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
So let you all know a little bit about Mila. Mila is a culture strategist at Culture IQ, a culture management software and services company committed to helping organizations measure and strengthen their culture. She's passionate about creating great places to work and building company cultures that drive business results. Prior to Culture IQ, Mila spent time on the market development and insights team at IBM and in the management consulting practice at Accenture. She's also worked in education operations at Achievement First. Mila has a bachelor's degree in industrial and labor relations and MPA from Cornell University. She also holds an MBA from Yale School of Management. Outside of work, Mila loves to travel and recently hiked Mount Fuji with a group of friends. Wow, Mila, this is quite the experience here. And this is like this is just like 3 sentences of your life here. So can you help us get to know you even better and beyond this year? Can you tell us a little bit more about your life, love, work, and passion?
Sure, sure. I love how you put that: life, love, work, and passion. So a little bit about me. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City, so right outside of New York City. I currently live in Queens, New York, so definitely a New Yorker at heart. Growing up, I had a great family. I grew up as part of an immigrant family, and they're super supportive, just a very defining kind of aspect of my life. So I have lots of fun stories about my family kind of growing up. Loved that. And then, like you mentioned, went to school at Cornell for undergrad and just kind of started discovering more about myself there. I feel like a lot of people in college start to discover what they're passionate about, what they're interested in terms of life and work. When it comes to passion, I have a hard time answering with one thing that I'm passionate about. I think I'm a very multi-passionate person. So there are lots of things that I really love and care about. And I feel like I'm always discovering something new. Every year I'm discovering something new that I'm passionate about. So right now, if I were to kind of like list out the things that I really love, I'm getting really into kind of meditation and mindfulness, that space. We're all having such busy lives these days. And I personally just kind of started getting interested in starting my own meditation practice. And so I've been learning a lot about that, exploring classes. I also really love to run. I've run 3 marathons and kind of did the first one, thought I'd never do another one, but then definitely became that person who was like, I wanted to sign up for 2 more. So love running. I'm starting to explore biking a little bit too. So those are some of my personal interests. And then in terms of work, I'm really, really interested in technology, especially software, and big data, how we kind of process all the big data that's being created out there. I'm sure a lot of the listeners of this podcast and just people in general have heard of big data and are trying to figure out what that actually means. And I'm really interested in how software and technology helps kind of process big data for people and makes it really accessible. So that kind of leads me to where I work today. Like you mentioned in the intro, I work at Culture IQ, which is a tech startup here in New York City. And our software helps kind of look at culture data within companies and helps kind of make sense of that. So those are kind of a couple of points on my kind of life, work, and passion.
Oh, that's fantastic, Mila. And it's really cool seeing how you were able to find a way to get into an organization where like big data is part of their day to day. And you're able to take your passions and the things that you're interested in and leverage that in a meaningful way. And I think it's really interesting because, a lot of time, like when I hear big data, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess you have to be an engineer or a developer to have any kind of like, how do I say it? Any kind of like roles or anything to do with that data. And it looks like you're using it to make insights on your day to day.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't have a technical background. I'm not an engineer. At Cornell, I majored in labor relations, which is kind of like almost like a pre-business degree. It was a lot about organizational behavior and management. And then even when I was getting my MBA, very much focused on kind of the organizational management side of things. So I would say, you don't need to be technical to have an interest in the space and to even work in this space. I think I bring a different perspective to my role and to the space, having that kind of management business side of things. And I'm also personally just learning a lot about what is behind the software and what's behind what really powers what we do for our clients. So definitely don't need to have a technical background. It's more about, are you passionate about it? Are you interested in it? And are you willing to learn about it?
Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned that you were interested in focusing on meditation. I think that's really great. What brought you into it? And if there was, let's start with that.
Yeah. So I think what brought me into it is I have just noticed that I'm really busy with work. And I think a lot of people feel the same, where they're just kind of like, I fill my days up and my evenings up. I work all day and then I either go home and have errands that I need to run or have to make meals, or I'm out like socializing with my friends, going out to dinner. So constantly just busy, full schedule. And I kind of started feeling like I wasn't taking time to slow down and really just kind of be reflective. And so I started reading about meditation, and, I've known about it for a long time, but I never really thought that I would ever be the type of person to do it, because I do like leading a fast-paced life and having all these kind of social events in my calendar. But I decided, let me give this a try and see if it adds some value to my life. And it really has. Like, the more I explore meditation, the more I learn about it, I realize that taking some quiet time every day to myself to just sit and meditate and relax is so important, and makes me even more productive during the day and makes me more focused, which is a really big part of meditation and mindfulness, is learning how to kind of focus your attention and not get distracted by everything around you. Because, as much as technology is awesome, it can also be very distracting. Everyone can relate to being on Facebook, having GChat up, having your Slack messages up, email on phone, multiple apps. Like, it's so easy to get pulled in a million different directions. And I think having a meditation or mindfulness practice, or even just a practice of every day of having a technology-free hour, helps you refocus and also kindles a lot of the creative juices and ideas that may come to you when you're not distracted. And I find that helps a lot with work and with life.
So thank you for sharing that there, because I know that for me, the first time I heard someone say that they meditated, I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But it's become it's a practice that I do. In fact, even just before I talk to you here, I get myself to slow down and make sure I'm in a place to truly serve and be there. So I appreciate you expanding on that, and I'm excited for what you do with that going forward here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Mila, just like as we got to touch a little bit on your journey, and what I'd like to do is see if you can share with us a success quote or success motto or mantra that you have used to shape your journey. It looks like you've had tons of success, and it's been a great journey for you. So can you help us understand some kind of quote that you use to guide you forward?
Sure. So my favorite quote that I definitely can use as a North Star is a Gandhi quote, and it's "Be the change you want to see." And I really love it because there are many times in my career, or there have been many times, where I've kind of felt a little bit lost or a little bit stuck. And it's really easy to kind of look at someone's bio or their resume and be like, wow, so successful. Everything just like looks like it fell into place. And it fits so nicely. And on paper, it does look like that. And when you take a step back, it definitely is that. But there have been so many moments where I felt kind of lost or not sure or stuck. And so this quote is a real big driver of me always remembering, like, I'm in the driver's seat. I can be the change that I want to see in this world. If I want to work on something meaningful, I can do that. Or if I want to change my career, I can do that. And it's just a reminder of I'm in control, not anybody else. And it's always been a great North Star when I felt kind of just stuck.
That's awesome. Would you mind sharing with us an example of a time you felt stuck recently and you decided to put this mantra into play?
Sure. So I think for me, about 7 months ago, I made the decision to leave corporate America, specifically IBM, where I had a great career for a couple of years, was able to actually move up in my career there through several promotions, really loved my team, still love the people there, stay in touch. But I was just kind of grappling with this decision of, do I leave corporate America and explore the tech startup world, which I'm really interested in, but it's kind of scary and not sure. And what if everything doesn't work out? What do I do after that? It's not a traditional career path all the time for people. So, and there's a lot of stability in the corporate world. So just a lot of things were kind of crossing my mind, and I was just very unsure of what I wanted to do. But I knew in my heart that I wanted to change, and I wanted to try being in a different environment outside of the corporate world and try a startup. So this quote was really just helpful for me, because at the end of the day, when I tried to boil down to what was most important, it was I wanted to work on something meaningful in a space that I found interesting, and I had the power to find that opportunity. So it was a real big driver for me to be the change that I wanted to see and go pursue it.
It's really cool. You said you wanted to work on something meaningful and such. And I think one of the cool things about this is that you boiled it down into something that was pretty tangible, something that you can actually go ahead and act on. And I'm happy, very happy that you made that change, because now employees, we all get the benefit of going on that journey with you and learning from some of the insights and lessons learned that you had along the way. So
Yeah.
I would love to understand more about this path here. So maybe you can talk to us about what got you started on this journey, and
Sure.
more about your professional background.
Sure. So let me rewind to kind of the beginning of my professional journey. So starting out of undergrad, I feel like in undergrad, a lot of people are like, find your passion, find that dream job coming out of college. What's your career going to be? And for me, I think coming out of college, I was really interested in a career where I could help people, where I could problem solve, where I'd be challenged every day. And I found that in a career in consulting, which I think a lot of people pursue after college because you get to explore a lot of different projects with a lot of different clients. And it gives you an opportunity to just continue exploring after college. And so I pursued a career in consulting, went into Accenture, was there for a couple of years and really loved it. I learned a ton, started getting a taste of technology there, but I was on the management consulting side, so working more on the org change and change management, which was my background. But coming out of there, like a typical millennial, I was like, okay, like I want to move on to the next thing and learn something new. And I also realized while I was at Accenture that I wanted something a little bit more mission driven. Some kind of mission that I really cared about. And I was always really interested in education, knew that I didn't want to be a teacher, but wanted to work in some sort of education environment. So I actually went to work for a charter school coming out of Accenture in Brooklyn, where I worked for the chief talent officer of an organization and really had a great opportunity to learn more about internal operations. How do school operations work? How do we hire and recruit and retain talent? So that world was really awesome. And I learned just a ton about culture and how it works in organizations when it comes to people. So I did that for a couple of years, and the entire kind of time I was interested in business school because I wanted to potentially pursue a career in business strategy. After both my roles at Accenture and in education, I, thought maybe I can marry these interests somehow. Maybe business school can help me understand that. And coming out of business school, I will find, another dream job. And so I went to business school at Yale and took a ton of classes on just different types of businesses, on strategy, on marketing, on statistics, and became really interested in one, the technology space, and also what we do with kind of big data, and started just getting interested in that. And so my role at IBM was on the market development and insights team, which was a role that helped the company kind of grow business into different markets. So it really used my business strategy background, and I got to work in the tech market. I didn't directly work on any of our tech products, but I started getting a taste of technology there. And I also just really loved applying business strategy to growing the business. But after about 3 years, I moved up twice in my roles there. I felt very fulfilled in that sense, but then I kind of was like, I want a fast-paced environment that's directly in technology where I get to touch the product and I get to work directly with customers. I want to have impact on the technological aspects of a product. Where do I go to do that? And I thought, a startup would be awesome because that's where a product is really developing. You get to wear a lot of different hats. So I'd be able to apply my business strategy background, but I'd also potentially get to touch on the product and give feedback into product development. So a startup just seemed like the right space. So I started looking, and it definitely took me, I think it took me about 3 months to find the right role. So, it didn't just fall into your lap, but I did a lot of talking to people, asking people about their roles. I asked a lot of my friends and friends of friends to connect me to people in the tech space, in the startup world, just to understand and learn about the world and dip a toe in. And then I was also kind of applying to jobs, and I came across Culture IQ, and I remember reading the job description and going down every single bullet point and checking the box. I was like, it was like works with senior level folks, can talk about company culture and is like passionate about the topic. loves technology, wants to work on a product that's scaling and growing. So everything just kind of checked the box. And I interviewed and it just felt like such a great fit. And I'm here now. It's been 7 months and it truly has been a great fit. And it's been such a journey. In 7 months, I feel like I've done so much and been able to impact so much. And that's exactly what I wanted in a startup. So I'm just really excited to continue my career here and kind of see where it goes.
That's so much fun, Mila. Like this is, I'm like sitting here listening to this, and what I love about it is that like it felt like directionally you've always been like moving in a certain path, with finding that underlying bit that continues to be like the general direction that you're heading in. But at the same time, you continue to refine more and more about like, is this what I want exactly? Is this
Yes,
is this going to take me to the next level, or have I gotten everything that I want from it? I feel like that what you said at IBM about being there for 3 years and then like really feeling fulfilled, but knowing that there's something new for you. I think that's something major there. So this kind of brings us up to where you are right now. And I know that I had mentioned that you're a culture strategist and at Culture IQ, but maybe we can spend some time diving into what exactly that means, what your role is, and how you fit within your organization.
Yep, definitely. So sometimes when I tell people I'm a culture strategist, everyone's like, wow, that's a really cool title. What do you do? So let me, explain. So a culture strategist here is someone who helps kind of work with our clients to design their survey engagements. So what they're doing is they're looking to better understand their company culture, kind of get a pulse on how's my company culture doing, how are people feeling, and what can we do to strengthen it. And so the first step in that journey is coming up with a survey, designing that survey, figuring out how to collect the data. And then the second step is collecting the data in our platform. So we have this great platform that lets you deploy a survey and you can then collect all this great data. And then we have this really awesome dashboard that populates live with the data. You can go in and you can play with it and really understand your metrics. And a culture strategist on top of the software helps you kind of interpret what's in the software and helps kind of do an add-on to the analysis that you can do in the tool. So we're kind of like, there's the software and then there's a strategist that can be paired with the software. So my job is to really augment what the software can do, and to also just kind of partner with clients who may not be as familiar with software and technology and may need some help looking at their data. We really are the people who kind of are at their side the entire time. So I really love the job because I get to work with clients and be in conversations with them all day. But I also get to look at data and do data analysis and be in our platform in the dashboard, kind of looking at all the great data and the charts, which I also really love. So that's my official job title and job role. But, being at a startup, you still wear multiple hats. And so, I also work on side projects within the company, like on operations projects. We have this thing called Scuba Squads where we deep dive into fun side projects and you can work on any topic that you're interested in. So I'm working on some operations related things. And then whenever we have feedback on the tool, so after a client may have an experience where they're like, wait, we wish this was in the tool, or we want to be able to do this. I sit right next to our development team and I get to work with them and say, here's what some of our clients are envisioning. Can we build this? And here are some suggestions. And so we also get to impact the product. So it's a pretty fun role, and it's also fun to be in a startup where you can wear other hats.
Well, that's so much fun there. You're absolutely correct. And, I spent some time, a number of years working in culture too. So quite frankly, I just think that culture is just a really, really fun problem to like put your attention onto and try and make some things come to life. Can I ask you, like in your role here, you're taking all this data, you're taking this big data, and then you're taking something that is, more quantified from a data perspective and seems a little bit more tangible there. And you're moving it into company culture, which, is something that takes a long time. It's a little bit less quantifiable and more like qualitative. So can you speak to like how you're able to balance the two of them, given the big data background and the fact that like these things feel like they might be more less easy to measure?
Oh, absolutely. So culture is a lot, how we define it is kind of how things get done in an organization and how things may feel. And so a lot of the words to describe company culture are very qualitative and descriptive, but not always necessarily quantitative. But our kind of thesis on this is that you can measure company culture by measuring certain qualities. So we measure things like wellness or collaboration. So things that we believe are things that contribute to company culture, we can measure. And how we measure that is by asking employees for feedback. So we ask them, how do you rate your company's collaboration? And then we ask a series of follow-up statements to ask, are these couple of things happening? And so we are able to collect data, quantitative data, on whether certain cultural aspects and behaviors are happening or not in an organization. And so we're able to then take something that's a little bit softer and more qualitative and start measuring it in data that we're seeing directly from employees. And so what that results in is us being able to pick and choose focus areas based on things that we see in the data being low. And then when we get back to those focus areas, then we can talk about, well, how do we actually, for example, if employees are feeling very stressed and that came out in the feedback, then we start to talk about what are some wellness programs that we can kind of bring to your company. And so it's a whole cycle of starting with, let's ask your employees for feedback on these 10 core qualities that we see as being essential to a strong culture, identifying where in the data we see lower points, and then third is basically picking focus areas and taking that data to action. So totally agree with you that culture can be kind of much more qualitative in how you describe it, but it's absolutely measurable if you're asking the right questions and then really looking at the data to see what's there.
Awesome. It seems to me like there's probably like one more step at the end of this here where you actually probably get more feedback again later on to see how this all works.
Definitely. Yep. So we will encourage clients to iterate and test out things, pilot things, and then collect more feedback to see how things are rolling out. So yeah, it's this constant like feedback loop.
Mm-hmm. So I'll be curious really quickly before we move on here, just to like kind of given your role and where you sit here, how do you interact with other functions within your group to be able to help provide a solution to a client?
Mm-hmm. So I kind of started mentioning that wearing many hats, and in our office we sit all together. We have the marketing team, we have the sales team, we have the development team, we have operations, and we have account management, and then we have my team, the culture strategy team. So we have everyone here, and we do work hand in hand together very closely. So sales works closely with my team because we're talking about what our customers needs and what our prospectives looking for when they're looking for this type of software and strategy kind of combination. So working with them, work with very closely with marketing. I put on webinars and I write blogs for the marketing team, so they're often brainstorming with me about content. I work with the account management team. The account management team kind of helps with project management, making sure clients are trained and all of that. So we work hand in hand on every single client engagement. And then the development team, they're the team that's building the software and kind of creating the next versions of the software. So we absolutely work hand in hand with them as well as we come up with ideas for the product, things that should be kind of changed or updated. We work with them. And we work with them on new features. So right now the strategy team is kind of brainstorming new features, and we work directly with the development team, kind of bringing our vision to them and kind of working hand in hand on how to build out product features.
Wonderful. Thank you for like making that clear here. And I think like it's really cool, as you're saying, like you wear multiple hats, and I think we'll get a chance to continue to explore that because I don't know how to describe it. When we think about like startups and that world, like a lot of things come up where it's like fast paced. You got to wear multiple hats. You got to do all these different things. I think if we can break that down as through the examples like you've been doing, I think that will continue to like get a better semblance of it. So just thank you so much, Mila, for taking the time to do all that.
Yeah.
And if you had to summarize anything from your journey, if there was like one takeaway that you would want people to have based on the journey that you've had or the work that you're currently doing, what would that takeaway be?
I think the takeaway would be, constantly be curious. If there's something that you're interested in, but you don't know much about, that's totally okay. Definitely be curious, ask questions. Asking questions has always led me to discover new things. And like I said at the beginning, like I have lots of passions, and a lot of them become discovered after I am curious and I learn more and I ask people. And it's kind of amazing how people are just really willing to help and teach you new things if you're willing to learn. So I think my biggest takeaway is always, if something doesn't seem within your reach or seems confusing or you just don't know much about it, you can absolutely learn about it by staying curious and asking questions.
Cool. So with that there, like, I'm sure that being curious has been something that has helped you all throughout here. And it's clear that you're successful, but I'm sure that your path through this has not been necessarily just a straight line up to success here. It'd be really great to talk through, just kind of keeping it real here, a time where you really struggled and had a challenge on a project or some part of your journey. I'm even going to go as far as to say, like, you failed, and love to be able to go to that moment with you and hear that example and the steps that you took to overcome it.
Sure. I can definitely I have many examples, and I'm not afraid to share them because I really think that failure, as much as it's hard sometimes to handle failure, it's very important to go through failure because you learn a lot. And in hindsight, it really does strengthen you and prepare you for kind of future steps in your career. So definitely have had a lot of roadblocks. It has not been a straight line. And so I would say, I'll use an example from my first kind of month here at Culture IQ. I was working on a new client. It was actually my first client that I'd gotten. So, I wanted to make a good impression and do a great job. And I was rolling out their very first culture survey. So it was a big deal. And I also wanted to, impress my team and impress the CEO. So there's just a lot riding on it. And, I work really hard and make sure that my projects are of the utmost quality. So I take a lot of pride in that. So with this client, I was like setting them up with their survey, getting them in their technology, and we launched their survey. And so what happens after a launch is we will kind of look at their response rates and make sure that response rates are increasing and that we're doing a great job. So kind of due to partially my fault for not doing due diligence on how our tool worked, because remember, I was new, I was a month in, I was starting to learn kind of how our platform works and how the surveys work and how the technology works on the back end. And I wasn't 100%, I wouldn't say I was 100% knowledgeable about everything, but I was learning as I was going. And so I didn't know about something about how our response rates worked. And so basically my client was very confused in their tool. They kind of logged into the platform one day and they were like, why is our response rate so low? And turns out that there was kind of some errors in the tool, partially due to the technology and partially due to me not really knowing how things worked and not having explained to the client how things worked properly. So long story short, my client got really upset because they didn't understand what they were seeing. I hadn't really explained to them fully. And they escalated immediately to our company CEO and complained. And they were like, we don't understand why our response rate's so low, and we just don't understand what's happening. And I was on that email, and I remember my heart just sank. It was about midnight, so really late. I had been kind of notified about the issue, and by the time it was escalated to the CEO, it was really late. And so I remember staying up till 2, trying to figure out what the problem was, not really understanding myself because no one had explained to me, and I never even thought to ask people, how things work. So the next morning I kind of came in and just had a mini breakdown in the office, and I was very upset because I just felt like I had failed in my first month in the job, and I didn't understand, how some of the things worked, and I didn't do a good job of explaining to my client how things worked, and that resulted in a client being unhappy. And so it felt awful in the moment. And my boss, who's amazing, was like, let's go get a coffee, we'll walk around the block and we'll figure it out. And he just kind of was an amazing boss and was like, we'll handle it, no worries. And we debriefed, and I had a chance to kind of calm down and get back to a place where I was like, okay, I've got this, I've got it under control. But yeah, it felt like a pretty big failure, like 1 month into this new job that I had been dreaming about, and finally I got it. And then I failed at something like a month in. So yeah, in the moment it was hard and a lot of lessons were learned, but honestly, I'm now 7 months in and have seen so many other successes due to that experience, because I was like, I know how to handle this now, and I know how to communicate this to my clients, and I know how to do this better. And so I've just seen a lot more success after that. And it was a really great learning moment. But yes, definitely in the moment, it felt not that great.
Wow. Thank you for taking us there. Like I'm picturing you right now, like just sitting at home and it's midnight and you're like, I'm
Yeah.
hearing some rumblings. I'm like, this is my first one. I'm just really curious how things went. And then
Yeah.
like see the email that goes straight to the CEO in this case here.
It was awful.
Oh man.
Yeah, my heart just dropped. Like you can just picture me. I was in bed, all the lights were off, and my computer screen was just glowing in my face. And I was just kind of like, I literally had logged on just to make sure everything was okay. And I log on to like 3 different emails, and I'm just kind of scrolling through them. And each email is just making my heart drop more and more. And I'm just feeling so anxious. I had like a pit in my stomach and a pit in my heart, and was just like, oh my God, they're going to fire me. And when I saw that email to the CEO, I remember thinking, I'm done. Like this is my dream job. I'd worked so hard. I left IBM. I have no job. Like I freaked out. And the next morning I was brushing my teeth and I was just kind of like, I felt so defeated. So I really needed my boss to help kind of paint a picture of like, here's what happened. Let's debrief together and walk through this. And just having someone help me through that moment helped a lot. And then also myself just kind of getting back to a place where I was like, okay, mistakes happen, failure happens. I need to get a grip on this. And like I mentioned, like I take a lot of pride in my work. I work really hard and I like to put good quality work out there. So when I feel like something's not up to par or hasn't worked out, it can personally feel awful and you feel kind of defeated. So that feeling, I just had to reframe it and change it into, okay, like I can move on. I'm not going to dwell on this. Instead, I'm going to think about proactively fixing things and figuring out how to be better. So I think, you kind of go through all the emotions there and then figure out how to move on.
Yeah. I like, Mila, I've recently experienced something very similar where it's just like, oh wait, I told this should not have happened. I could have done something or where it was.
Yeah.
And I think that last line of like, you go through all the emotions. Like I look at it now, I'm like, all right, this is a loss in some kind of way. Like I feel like I'm going through this cycle of grief. My goal is to get through it as quickly as possible because no matter how sad I am about this or how scared I am about what happens next, if I don't move it forward, it's just going to sit here and we're going to wallow in it. And I think that there's probably something about the way that you came back and you rallied from this entire experience that is like continuing to lead to your success. And, Mila, like, firstly, I just really appreciate you taking us to that moment and just being open about this here because, these are the things that are at least on my mind when I go to a new job. And I'm sure that this is something that employees are thinking about, like, hey, I'm following my passion, and then what happens if it all comes like breaking
right.
around me? So can we talk through a little bit and just spend a little bit of time on this here? You you had talked about what I love to be able to give employees is maybe like 1 or 2 like practical ways that like when these types of things happen, given that you are someone that, works really hard, takes great pride in your work, brings high quality work to the table. And then sometimes things just don't line up here. Like what are like 2 or 3 different ways that like now you've added to your toolkit to help you move past or move through those incidents quicker?
Yep. So I definitely think kind of practicing mindfulness is important because it brings your attention to all of your emotions that you're feeling. And so the reason I mentioned emotions and kind of going through all the emotions is that it's important to go through them, right? We're all human, we all fail, and it's best to acknowledge all the feelings that kind of come with that. But what I like about this practice of mindfulness is it makes you acknowledge all the feelings and then kind of regain control and regain focus and think about, okay, I might be feeling upset. What's kind of causing that? And how can I kind of move back to a place of balance and of happiness? So I think one of the things in my toolkit really is when something happens that's upsetting or just makes me feel not great about my work, I take some moments to just reflect on it and think about why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, what's causing it, kind of really feeling that emotion and then letting it go. And I think that's really important to let some of those distressful emotions go, because, you can sit, you use the word wallow, and I think that's a great word. Like, you can sit on a problem or something that went wrong for a long time and just keep kind of recalling in your head and going over and over it, and then nothing's kind of coming out of it except for you just feeling really bad for yourself. And so it's important to go through the feelings, but then to let it go and to then move into the state of what's next. So I think the next thing in my toolkit that I use is really being proactive around taking what I've learned and then applying it. So you can, make a mistake, but if you haven't learned anything from it, you may make the mistake again and you may repeat it. And that is just kind of not a good use of your time. So if you have a failure, it's really important to think about what the lesson is that you've learned and then apply it. So I really try to make changes. And so to remind myself about things that I want to do differently, I do my to-do list in Evernote. And so I have like a weekly plan, and I kind of just I have a section of just like reminders, and I may put it in there for the next couple of weeks. And that just kind of ingrains in my head, like, do this or change this. And it's just like little notes to myself to help me remember what I want to change and do differently in the future to not make the same mistake again. So those are just a couple really simple things that anyone can do, which is just learn how to process your emotions and let go. And then two, like really take lessons learned and actually apply them in your work.
Oh, this whole the Evernote aspect, I think, is really, really quite interesting there, because you've taken the time, you understood it, you've been able to move past it, and yet it's almost like you understand what's going on. Like, it's almost like you understand culture and behavioral change, where but like, it's not just that one decision, right? It's like what I'm hearing from you, Mila, is that you find ways to consistently reinforce it, such that it's not even just the next day or the week after, but you have that in your Evernote where you go through on a weekly basis, and you're consistently reminded until it becomes like a more part of your DNA. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yep. And once it's part of my DNA, I take it off my list, and I have other things on there that I'm still working on. But yeah, I like to just check in with myself. And when I do my weekly plan every Thursday or Friday, I look at that list and I remind myself of the things that I'm working on. And it's just kind of a weekly check-in with myself to remind myself of what I'm working on and what I want to kind of do better.
Awesome. Can I ask you one other question? And I'd love to find out more about flipping this whole thing around, which is that you had mentioned that as part of this year, like, no one had explained to you some of like the intricacies of the survey and how the response rates went. And I would probably assume that, like, given that you've been wearing multiple hats there, and you're in the startup world, there's not always the same type of support from an education standpoint or that you would get in a larger corporate setting here. So I was wondering, maybe now that you've been there for a number of months, do you have any tips or tricks or strategies for people who are maybe used to finding out everything in advance, and maybe being provided everything in advance, and now having to be in an environment where they have to figure it out on their own?
Yep. I am just sitting here smiling because there's so much advice here. So I come from an environment like IBM and Accenture where I just had great onboarding, 2 weeks of training. People send you emails with everything you need to know. You get like a printout guide, there's just so much training. And then I started here, and I think many startups are like this, and many small tech companies that are growing, they're just kind of like, great, you're here. Put your butt in the seat and get to work. And, here's 2 minutes of training, but you'll figure it out as you go. And you just kind of are like, okay, cool. And this is what I wanted. I want to learn, move fast, and, get clients and get started. But, I realized that it's very important, if you don't have a formal onboarding or a formal training, to set up time with your team and people that you're working with who've been in the company for a little while longer than you, to ask them questions. So I always find, buddies on my team and buddies around me to be like, hey, I don't get this. Can you help me figure it out? And what's awesome is everyone's so awesome, they want to help, but they don't always stop to help you because they also have so much on their plates. And I've learned this now being here for 7 months, I know now what everybody does and what, like, how everything works. And I realized, like, everyone's just very busy because they're also wearing multiple hats and they're moving, but they're always happy to stop if you ask a question. So anytime I asked a lot of questions, and I even told my team, I was like, guys, be patient with me because it's my first month. I'm going to ask you lots of questions. I'll probably repeatedly ask you some questions. And I like laughed about it, but I was like also serious, and they laughed about it too, but they were like, no problem. Just stop us when you need something. So I learned to just ask questions and figure things out, and really like rely on the people around me for support. But I also was smart about it. Like, I didn't ask people a million questions all separated out. I would kind of gather my questions in one spot and then ask people a group of questions and be like, I have 5 questions that I've kind of collected over the week, and I'll kind of learn from that. And then if there are urgent questions, of course, I'll ask them immediately if, you know, something's impacting a project that's due or a client that needs something now. But yeah, I've learned to really ask questions. It's really that simple. Like, when, even as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, it sounds so simple, like ask questions, but it can be very hard when you're in a fast environment and people are working hard and everyone seems to be doing a lot. It's still important to be like, hey, I need just 20 minutes of your time to understand how this works. Would love to see how you walk through it, or can you explain it to me? You know, and then take really good notes because you may not remember it. And I have, like I said, I take all my notes in Evernote. I write everything down so I can go back, because I know for the first couple months on a job, I felt like I was drinking out of a fire hose and was very overwhelmed. So it was just so helpful for me to go back to my notes and be like, oh, this is what my coworker said, and this is how it works. And if I needed extra time to like teach myself something, I could go back to the notes and process again. So it's really important to ask questions, take notes, give yourself the resources that you need to onboard yourself in a way, and people will help. You just need to ask for it.
Thank you there, Mila. I think I wanted to bring it out there because I know that it's just not given to you in a perfect little bow there. And I think it's really cool here. You're smiling. It's like, ask questions. There it is at the end of it. Employees, like, get out there and, like, regardless of your personality, if you're super extroverted or, you know, you find yourself to be more introverted, and I'm going to use this more in terms of whether or not you want to go out and meet a whole lot of people, or if you want to spend more time with yourself, like, questions are at the core of it all. And I find that, you know, what I have found is that people who spend more time listening than talking actually ask really insightful questions. But it's also just important to get that out there so that, you know, especially if you're talking fast-paced environment, lots of different work that's going on, your question could end up saving a lot of other people time in the long run.
Exactly.
Right away.
Yep. Exactly.
That's awesome. So we're wrapping up our conversation here, Mila. I want to be mindful of your time here. I was just wondering if you can, now that we've, like, if you can talk to us about, like, a project that you worked on or experience that you had in your professional journey that just brings you a lot of joy, something that you're incredibly proud of, and the steps that led to your success.
Sure. Let's see, I have a couple of examples, but a recent kind of proud moment, and I'm going to jump back to IBM for this one, just because it's kind of a fun story. So while I was at IBM, I started getting interested in company culture while I was there. And because it wasn't a part of my day job, I started kind of looking at, like, what else is there at IBM that I can do? And there was this really cool group that they had started called Fast Forward 2020. It was a group of millennials within the company that were kind of working on IBM's company culture and figuring out how can we improve IBM's company culture. We're looking for people to kind of join this group of 40 people from all over the world to work on company culture at IBM. So I joined the group. I had to apply, and my manager had to, like, do a reference and everything. So they made it seem like, you know, it was really selective and cool. So I got in, which was awesome. And I got to work with very senior level executives within IBM who were kind of sponsoring us to figure out what about IBM's culture can we improve and make better. And we had a number of workshops. We had a team that we worked with. And my proudest moment was we got to present to Ginny Rometty, who is the CEO of IBM. And she's one of the coolest women, one of the few female executives in the world. She is very wealthy, very smart, super sharp, and is just one of my role models. And so getting to present to her was amazing and also insanely scary. So the night before, we were all practicing, we all had parts to present. And I just remember thinking, like, oh my God, I'm about to present to Ginny Rometty, who's the CEO of IBM. Like, what is happening? And so I practiced my presentation, I rehearsed, I made sure I knew what I was talking about. And the next day, Ginny, walked into the room and we all presented, and it was so amazing, like very awesome to present to her because she's super sharp. She really listened and asked great questions on some of our suggestions. And it was just a very humbling experience to get to meet someone who's running this gigantic global company. So it was just a really proud moment because it was a moment that culminated from, looking for the stuff that I was interested in, applying, and then being proactive, and then working with really cool people and just on something that I was passionate about, and then being able to present to, this amazing CEO.
That's so much fun, Mila. That's so awesome there. That's like, I mean, what an incredible experience. And it's cool because what I love about that, it's that it wasn't lucky at all. And I'm really, really happy that they had you apply because I feel like that you earned every single moment up there. Like, even from the first decision of saying like, yeah, I'm interested in company culture. Yeah, I'm going to apply and make this happen and go from there. And
they said that I wrote like some of the longest essays, and I was like, I'm just really passionate about this topic.
So they were lucky to have you. No, that's so wonderful. I think, especially given right now, company culture is such a major lever, and I think just given generational aspects with millennials right now, and trying to find passion and trying to be at a place where you want to work and feel like you want to come to work every day, like that's a big thing. And so for companies to have a good understanding of their culture and ways to drive it in a way that not only keeps the employees happy, but also provides the business results that they're looking for. I mean, it's clear that like even at IBM, like the CEO is sitting in there listening intently and asking major questions. Like exactly. It's not a small thing right now.
Yeah, so it's definitely a big topic of interest for many companies.
Oh, absolutely. So I guess let me ask you, if there was like one takeaway you would have from that, what would that be from that experience?
I think the biggest takeaway is being open-minded. So I wanted to work on something a little different than what was in my day job, and I just set out to look for it. Like, it definitely didn't fall into my lap. I just started kind of talking to people that I knew, and someone was like, hey, there's this really cool program that I heard, like maybe you'd want to apply. So I think the biggest takeaway is like, I would never have found that opportunity and gotten to present to Ginny if I hadn't initially taken the step to just start looking around and like put my head up and be like, what's going on in the company? I think sometimes people can easily put their head down and work really hard and have really awesome results, but then you never had a chance to pick your head up and look around and see what other opportunities exist here and what else can I do. So I think that's a big takeaway to look up sometimes and look around and see what's going on, because you might stumble upon something really cool.
That's cool. It's like, oh, you're going to ask questions again and get you to success. So
yeah, it's just a general theme here.
I love these. I love that at least employees, you can walk away with something really tangible there. So Mila, we've used up all of our time here. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about like what's happening for you right now, and if you had any takeaways for employees overall that you'd like them to walk away with.
Sure. So I think what's happening for me right now is like I mentioned, I'm about 7 months into this new job. I guess it's not as new anymore, but I'm just really loving it. And my goal in the next 6 months is to, continue working hard and showing results and just having a good time, because, work, it should be fun. It's your career, your job, whatever you're doing in life, it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. You only get one life. So, I think that's just where I'm at, like trying to enjoy every day and really live and celebrate the journey, which is one of our company values here. And then as a parting thought, I think I've kind of woven this through with the ask questions theme and all of that, but I think a lot of people look back at their time in college or school and say, well, that was the best time ever because I got to learn whatever I wanted to learn and I got to choose what I wanted to focus on. And I kind of think that you should just treat your career and your life as an extension of that period of learning where you can continue to learn, and your jobs you can think of them as like different majors or minors that you want to pursue over time. And you may be the person who chooses to go really deep on some of those majors, or you may choose to go through life and work on multiple different areas and have multiple passions. There's really no right or wrong way. I think whatever keeps you fulfilled and always learning is really important. And yeah, so the good times are not over after college.
Oh, I love it. I love it so very much. Now, Mila, we're about 5 minutes over here. I do want to
Yeah.
give you an opportunity, since you did say you ask questions, to ask me a question if you'd like. But if you're
Sure.
like, I mean, I've gone over the time that I said we were going to have. So I do want to be respectful of that. But I'm like, given that you like asking questions, I might as well put it
Sure.
out.
Why not? I will ask you one question. It will be short, but what gets you out of bed every day, Nemo?
Ooh, fun question. Thank you very much for that. I actually think it really ties to what you just described. So I think for me, I have three different values. One of them is empowerment. The other is inclusion. And the last one is just development. And what gets me out of bed is just the idea that, like, if I can go out there and do something that stretches me, I can grow and develop, and that can then be a little bit more light to someone else, to help empower them to take action so that they can feel included and have a seat at the table. So,
Yep.
like, I guess it's like whatever that next day's challenges are, to push myself forward and do it in a visible way that helps inspire others or helps people get a step closer to their dreams. And to be honest, to even just sit down and like define their dreams. You know, I asked life, love, work, and passion for a reason, because a lot of people who come out like, I don't know what my passion is. It's like, okay, let's work on that, you know? So yeah, that's my big thing here. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to think on that for a bit.
Yeah. Awesome. That's such a great answer. I love it.
Yeah. Well, you've been fantastic today throughout this entire conversation. Thank you so much for sticking around a little bit longer to make this all come together. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your experiences, and we appreciate you. Mila, thank you for spreading joy. And I look forward to what comes next for you.
Thank you so much, Nemo. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.
Booyah. I knew that Mila was going to deliver. I told you that she would, and I'm just really thrilled that you've made it through the episode so that you have been able to take in that knowledge. Now, Stephen Covey has been known to say that to know and not do is to really not know. So now it's up to you to take this knowledge and start putting it into action. Hopefully you're not mad at me for putting it out there, but I mean, that's the thing that's going to get you results. And quite frankly, that's my expectation and my ask of employees that spend the time listening to this. Do yourself the favor of going all the way through and investing in yourself. Today, you can do that by going to the Empjoyment community, which you can get to by going to empjoyment.com/community, or just typing in the word Empjoyment to 33444. Or if you can't spell that, community to 33444. Gonna make this nice and simple. Now, today's action as a result of today's episode is really around asking questions. Mila stressed the importance and the impact of how asking questions has worked for her in her transition. And we want to make sure that you get a chance to practice asking questions, because quite frankly, it's not always natural. It's not easy to go off and admit that you don't know something. It actually shows a sign of humility. And depending on what your work environment is right now, you might be surrounded by people or culture where information is treated like gold and it's hoarded, and that's how people make their careers. You'll find very quickly that in tech, like, the industry is growing so quickly, and quite frankly, they're building the successful product together. So without a free-flowing information exchange, you cannot possibly win. You cannot possibly win. So I want to make sure that you all have the opportunity to start practicing asking questions, and also practicing getting asked questions and answering questions in return. So go to the community, and your joy quest for today, I'm trying out this word, joy quest. Your joy quest for today is to go and ask one question and provide one answer to a separate question within the Empjoyment community. That will help you and others move forward in your journey. All right, that's it. Simple, but at the same time, hard. So with that, go take action. I am thoroughly looking forward to you experiencing joy on a daily basis. Go forth and make some greatness happen. All right? Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Peace out and bye.